Sometimes we can think that divine appointments are for other people, or that they never happen, or they're just for something. But I just want to encourage you this morning that God has divine appointments for each one of us. And He can orchestrate the most interesting and amazing connections between people ever. So if in your life, in some form, maybe it's for a job, maybe it's, I don't know what that is, whatever that is for you, that you've been really crying out to God for a divine connection, can I just encourage you today that He's the master of connection? And so I'm going to have them put a picture up here for me. And this is from Poland. This was our first night in Warsaw. And we were at the street church in Warsaw, and they have street church right outside the bus station in the middle of town. A quarter of a million people come by there every day, so it's a very busy place. They've been doing street church for several years, so it's well known. So they set up, they have worship, they feed them, and they have a prayer tent. And so we were there at Street Church. Tim got to share. This is Ray Domachowski. He was on our team from Pennsylvania. He got to share. Jeremiah Johnson from Georgetown shared. And then Pastor Pavel shared, so it was awesome. And several people got saved that night, which was amazing too. But as we were kind of mingling through the crowd, we met this lady and her husband. I think her name is Tammy. And Earl, I believe is his name. And so we began to talk because it was evident that they spoke English and not just Polish, which is always a plus when you're in the sea of Polish people and you're trying to find someone that you can say hello, and they get it. So we met Tammy and Earl, and come to find out that they are missionaries to Poland. And they work actually with someone that we had met the week before in southern Poland, which is, connection number one, right? So we meet these people in the middle of Warsaw. They are American missionaries to Poland, and they work with the person that we had met. His name was Sławik. We had met Sławik the week before, and they work with Sławik as part of a church planting team in Poland. So we continued to talk, and with them they had a couple from Madrid, Spain, who've been in that doing, they've been on the mission field for about 30 years, doing something called the Red Box, which is another form of missions work. But anyways, so Tammy and Earl, we began to chat, and we're talking, and so we're like, the obligatory, where are you from? Well, we live in California. We're from California. But originally, she says, I'm from Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. I said, you're kidding. So she went to the church, Central Assembly, where I taught school. Yeah. So then she says to me, well, let me preface this before this. Ray comes from, he lives in Canonsburg, by the way, and he had brought these chocolate bars with him to share from Sarah's Chocolate, which is just an amazing chocolate place. So he had brought them, and in that night, before he came, and I'm sorry, I should have told this part of the story first, but Holy Spirit told him to put 3 chocolate bars in his bag, one for his interpreter, one for Jeremiah, who we were picking up at the airport, and one for someone special that God would show him. So this lady says to me, so we're finding out, oh, you went to Central Assembly. Oh, that's where I taught school. She said, oh, Sarah's Chocolate is my favorite. I said, wait a minute, wait. So I went and I got Ray, and I said, come over here. I know who that chocolate bar goes to. It goes to Tammy. And so that's her holding up her chocolate bar. And come to find out that Tammy went to school with Ray's cousin. So if you think that God can't arrange divine connections for you, let me just encourage you on multiple levels. He can make the connections that you need, whether you're wherever you are. You can be in the middle of Poland and a sea of non-English speaking people, and God will connect you. But I think the other thing that was so sweet about this story is, it was kind of like, the story when David was like, if I could just have a drink from the well. And so that was kind of her like, oh my goodness, I haven't had a Sarah's Chocolate Bar in years. That would be so amazing. And so here's God, knew before she got there, before we met, so that Ray could put one of those chocolate bars in his bag for her to give her the desire of her heart. So I don't know what it is. It could be a small, a chocolate bar is kind of maybe down there on the totem pole, if you will. It's not, it doesn't seem to be a big deal, but to her it was a big deal. So I want to encourage you. I don't know what you're believing God for or what even just kind of flew through your brain like, it would be so nice to. God hears even those things, those musings, those things that go on in our heart. And he delights to give us the chocolate bar in the middle of Warsaw from Americans who they've never met before. So those are kind of my two. We have so many stories. I'll share one more. Can I share one more story? Yay. There are so many stories. We could spend all days telling stories. But I think the other one, this was the second week in Warsaw. The first week was amazing. Lots of stories from there. Second week in Warsaw was amazing. Lots of stories. Third week we were in Norway. Norway was just, talk about connections. God was just so faithful to connect us up with people. And we got the opportunity to prophetically minister to lots and lots of people. And I would say, for me personally, that was just the level of accuracy and expectation that they had, but the level of accuracy was just off the charts. And so that was really fun. So we were there with Andrew and Celia. They did an amazing job of just hosting us, and they were awesome. So Friday night we had a small group. They invited some of their friends. And so we were sharing on the prophetic, taught how to minister, got them activated. It was fun. So then we were going around the room to prophesy. So there was I can't remember his name. Anyway, he's from Ethiopia. Sorry. Too many people. Because someone else said, well, what did Celia and Andrew tell you about me? I said, I can't even remember your name. There's just no way. But you can ask them. They didn't tell me anything. So this young man from Ethiopia, and I started to prophesy, and I said, I see you on a camel across the desert. I don't know. I'm sharing my heart. I just really felt like there was this adventure, this mission, this journey he was on. And so I said, no, you're like Harriet Tubman. Do you know Harriet Tubman? Of course, he was like, no, I have no idea who Harriet Tubman is, but go ahead and tell me. I said, well, she was a lady who saved many slaves. She led people from the south to the north. I said it was a very dangerous job and it was a very lonely job, but many people's lives were changed because she led them out of slavery into freedom. And I said, you're like Harriet Tubman. And he said, let me show you something. Great. He said, I've already done this. So he pulls up a video from Al Jazeera TV. So he led a team taking slaves out of Libya into freedom. Thousands of people. Yeah. And the EU was not in favor of this, so it was not only dangerous but very lonely, and he had to do it kind of under the cover. But he had saved thousands of people and led them out of slavery into freedom. So God knows where we are, where we live, and what we're doing. He knows us intimately. So be encouraged. He knows you. He knows what you've done, and he knows what you're going to do.
I'll tell you about that in a moment. We want to thank you for sowing into our team. Couldn't have done it without you. In fact, you were with us. Everything we did, you have invested in, and therefore have inheritance from in the kingdom. Oh, I know I had these on. Sorry, I'll tell you. I lost my glasses on the way to the airport in Warsaw, and can't read without them. So apologize for being, but Dawn is actually part of my entourage since I'm such a very important person that I keep my sunglasses on. So this all fits in some weird way. I just want to read you what I posted. Instead of sharing lots of stories that I could share, I just want to be as succinct as I can to give you a real overview of what God did. We were able to teach and preach over 26 times in 21 days. I mean, think about that. We prophesied to almost 200 people. In one setting, after one Sunday service, I personally prophesied to over 50 people. I didn't leave the service until after 4 p.m. on a Sunday morning. That's how hungry people are. We saw multiple healings. The first Friday night, one of the pastors got healed of a lung issue. Just amazing. It's worth it just for that. We'd go all over again for 3 weeks, go through all the hassles just for that. Just amazing. There were over 10 people saved at Street Church in Warsaw. We had 9 strategic meetings with over 24 key influencers in Europe. The Lord told me in July or 1st of August that this trip was going to be about him sending us to influence the influencers in Europe. We had 9 strategic meetings. This was not the run-of-the-mill missions trip that we've been in Poland and done for 6 times now. We had 9 meetings behind closed doors with strategic influencers in Europe. Whoa, I cannot believe that God would grant us the privilege. But he has. We now are connected with the church planting movement in Poland that has asked Dawn and I to train their church planners in the prophetic. They have a 2-year track for all their church planners. They have a vision for planting 700 churches in cities in Poland that are above a certain population that do not have a church. And they have, after this leadership conference that we did, the guy who's in charge of that was part of that leadership conference. And he began messaging me that very night that the leadership conference ended. And he said, I just have a strange question for you. No, it's not about money. Would you come and be part of our 2-year cycle training church planners in Poland? Whoa. And we now have strategic relationships with 2 churches in Oslo, Norway. I think what God did that last week surprised us the most. By the time the weekend rolled around, we only had 2 events scheduled that entire week. And they were both small groups. And the first small group just happened to be part of the key leaders in the main church that we visited called Jesus Church. And because they got wrecked on Thursday night, there was a wedding, big wedding in the church, and half the people were gone on Sunday morning because there was a wedding of some key people in the church on Saturday. But because of that wedding, this is how God works. We had no idea. And in natural, it would look like that'd be a terrible weekend to plan to go and try to build relationship with people you don't know, because half the people that you want to know are going to be at a wedding, and you're not going to get to meet them. But God knows. He set all this up from eternity past. Because they had a wedding, you know what they did? They spread good rumors about 2 crazy Americans who have the word of the Lord in their mouths. And because of the way God orchestrated this, that Thursday night meeting, one of the couples in attendance were responsible for the Jesus Revolution Ministry, which I don't have time and won't take time to, but I encourage you to look those things up. It's a youth mission organization, youth sending organization for revival all over Europe. They have bases all over Europe. And they have kids that have sold their lives out to Jesus. They invited, because of the ministry they received, we didn't teach, but they didn't hear us preach. They have no knowledge of us other than the word of the Lord in our mouths. On our way back to our apartment that night, we got a message through Celia that they invited us to teach their Jesus Revolution students on Friday morning, the next morning. Again, I'm sorry? It was afternoon. They didn't know us. We had no credentials that meant anything to them other than the word of the Lord was in our mouth. And they knew it was God. So we got to teach in that. And then over the weekend, the good rumors were spreading. Sunday, we got a chance to sit down with the pastors, Stefan and An, phenomenal people, movers and shakers in Europe. Just one of those key influencers that the Lord had strategically set up for us to meet. And I can tell you with a certainty, we will be working shoulder to shoulder with Stefan and Ann in the days to come. But they were tired. They drove all night. I had 4 hours of sleep, came to church, and had coffee. Were gracious enough to have coffee with Don and I for just a few minutes that turned into be 2 hours at their request. And we went to another church that night, and on the way back, we got a message from another Anna, a different name, Anna, and she wanted us. She was one that had heard the good rumors of these two crazy Americans, and she was responsible for the Bible college that has. I don't know the number of nations represented, but they have a Bible college that they tend and care for. TBBMI is the initials. You can look it up as well. And they got students from all over the nations, Brazil. I mean, I couldn't, just everywhere. And she said, well, I don't really know even how to say this, but good rumors have been flying around, and I haven't met you yet, but would you come and teach the Bible college students? So God just did divine appointment after divine appointment for us, and I really feel that we have a strategic partnership and base developing for Destiny Missions in Oslo, Norway, that will reach from there to all of Scandinavia. Come on, give the Lord the credit that's due his name. When I say to you that you're world changers, I mean it. Because I believe we're world changers. And he's sending us to the nations for real. Not just for play, but for real. And we're going to have an inheritance as a church in the nations of the earth. Before we left, 4 weeks before we left, the Lord put Ukraine on my heart. Out of the blue. I'd never had a desire to go to Ukraine. I've seen it in the news, you know, all the political stuff and whatever. But 4 weeks before we left, the Lord began to put Ukraine in my heart. And I just said, Lord, I know you're big, but I'm small. I mean, how are you going to do all this? I don't have enough energy to do all of this. You're putting another nation on my heart. I just knew it was the Lord. So we get into Warsaw. The last night we're there, our host, who at one point was on the top 10 richest men in Poland list, he sent us to Europe to influence the influencers. Little people from Washington, Pennsylvania. I mean little people. No, I mean little people. Washington, Pennsylvania is a lot smaller than Lexington, Kentucky. And he sent us to a place called Lexington, Kentucky, and he had planted us there for 20 years. And he's sending us all over the world to influence influencers. Don't tell me God can't do something through you. Because you're a world changer. You have his DNA inside of you. So the last night in Warsaw, and I'll finish with this. The last night in Warsaw, because I've got something on my heart I want to share with you. We were having dinner at the request of our host, and they asked us if it would be okay if they invited a Ukrainian pastor, a Ukrainian husband and wife who are pastors, who are in Warsaw teaching at a seminary, Jewish studies. They're not Jews themselves, but we said, that sounds awesome, especially when he said Ukrainian. Because 4 weeks before, the Lord said, I'm going to send you to Ukraine. And so we had a lovely dinner with them talking about their history. And if you've been around me, you know I'm a man of 1,000 questions. So I just love to hear people's journey. So we asked them the 1,001 questions and really are excited to have an open invitation to go minister among a network of churches in Odessa. Is it Odessa? Odessa, Ukraine. The Lord sent us to Prague in the Czech Republic. We went overnight, stayed in a nice hotel. You know, we found out we have to be careful to build breaks into these trips because people don't know anything. They don't know any of our negatives. All they've heard is the PR, and they have an expectation in their heart that they're going to meet God. And so people pull on you 24/7. So we built an overnight into Prague with the purpose of meeting with a couple that were graduates of CFNI, Christ for the Nations. And we met with them at a a nice restaurant and had a chance, a whole team, to minister and pray over and encourage them. We could just tell you story after story. There are movers and shakers in Prague. I'm telling you, nothing is impossible with God. So if you thought you could come and hide out in a little small church in Lexington, Kentucky, you might rethink that premise. Because here's the deal. Next year, Don and I are looking to take several trips. And we're also looking to take several teams. So if you're interested in going to the nations and want to be part of a team, come talk to us. There are some requirements, right? You can't have people falling apart when you're 5,000 miles away from home. So we want to be careful about and watch care over your souls. But that's not a discouragement. I just want to encourage you. If it's in your heart to go to the nations, I want to encourage you next year. The second thing the Lord told me about this trip this year was that go with an eye to prepare grooves so that you can bring teams next year. So we're very, very, very excited about what the Lord is doing in the nations of the earth. But we're standing in front of you, excited to be pastoring you, to be leading a bunch of world changers in Lexington, Kentucky. You know, we have a job to do. And people say, well, it sounds performance. Don't. Listen, Jesus had a mission. And we have a mission as a church. And I want to say to you individually, you have a mission that matters on planet Earth. And you are well able to take your mountain for Jesus. You can be Jesus where you are and where you are on assignment, unlike anyone else. Change the world.